The observation deck of the Stellar Harmony hummed with the usual symphony of alien languages, but Elena barely noticed anymore. 3 months into the galactic exchange program, she'd grown accustomed to the chittering of Vexillians, the resonant bass of Theridians, and the melodic whistles of the Cathrai. What she hadn't grown accustomed to was being watched like a laboratory specimen every time she worked. Today was no different. Elena sat at her workstation in the engineering bay. A scorched circuit board spread before her like a patient on an operating table. The life support relay had blown during a minor solar flare, and while the redundancies had kicked in, someone still needed to repair the primary system. That someone apparently was always her. She picked up her compressed air canister and gave the board a careful blast, watching centuries of spacefaring dust scatter like metallic snow. Behind her, she heard the soft padding of feet. Pause. Really? Approaching her station. "Core," she said without turning around. "I know you're there." A small, furry head peeked around the edge of her workbench. Core was young by Cathrai standards, barely past his first molt, with silver-gray fur that caught the light like starshine, and enormous amber eyes that seemed to catalog everything. The Cathrai were an old species, their civilization spanning millennia before humans had even discovered fire. They were brilliant engineers, master strategists, and cautious to a fault, which made Core's obsession with Elena particularly amusing to the rest of the crew. "You are cleaning again," Core observed, his translator collar rendering his whistles into perfect standard. "I wish to understand this human technique." Elena smiled despite herself. "It's just compressed air, buddy. Gets the dust out of the sensitive components." Yes, Core chittered, scrambling up onto the stool beside her with surprising agility. "But why must you clean?" "Our circuits are sealed. Our boards are protected. Dust does not touch them." "That's the difference," Elena said, pointing to the board with her multi-tool. "You build everything to last forever, completely sealed and protected. We humans, we build things we can fix, things we can open up, tinker with, and put back together." Core's ears twitched, a sign of confusion among his people. "But if you seal them properly, you do not need to fix them." "Until you do," Elena countered. "And then what? You replace the entire unit? We'd rather repair what we have." She picked up her soldering iron, letting it heat while she inspected the damaged traces on the board. The scent of burning flux filled the air as she carefully bridged a broken connection. The iron tip glowed orange-red, and tiny sparks danced where metal met metal. Core leaned closer, fascinated. His whiskers quivered. "See this?" Elena said, guiding the solder into place. "This board probably cost 1/10 of what your equivalent would cost. But I can fix it in 20 minutes. Your sealed unit would take 3 days to arrive from the nearest supply station." "But the risk?" Core began. Elena laughed. "Yeah, there's risk. That's kind of humanity's whole thing." She finished the joint and set down the iron, then picked up her compressed air again. Another quick blast cleared the flux residue and sent a small shower of sparks scattering across the workbench. Elena instinctively pursed her lips and blew gently across the board, extinguishing the tiny glowing embers. Core's eyes widened to impossible dimensions. "What? What did you just do?" Elena glanced at him. "Oh, just blowing out the sparks. Old habit. Probably don't need to, but she didn't get to finish." Core had already grabbed his own compressed air canister, one of the human-style tools that had recently been distributed to the multi-species crew for compatibility purposes. He aimed it at Elena's board and gave it an enthusiastic blast. Then, in perfect mimicry of Elena's gesture, the young Cathrai pursed his small mouth and blew across the circuit board. Nothing happened, of course. The sparks were already out. But Core looked up at Elena with such pride, such absolute certainty that he'd performed an essential engineering technique, that she couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Did I do it correctly?" he asked, tail swishing with excitement. "Perfectly," Elena managed between giggles. "Absolutely perfectly." The next day, Elena arrived at the engineering bay to find 3 more Cathrai cubs clustered around her workstation. Core stood at the center like a tiny professor, a damaged power coupling laid out before them. And then, Core was explaining with great authority, "You must blow on it. The human does this every time. It is crucial to the repair process." Elena watched, hidden behind a support column, as Core demonstrated the technique to his peers. He compressed air over the coupling, then pursed his lips and blew dramatically across the components. The other cubs watched with rapt attention, their tails twitching in synchronized fascination. "I see," one of them whispered. "The human breath contains special properties?" "Perhaps," Kor replied gravely. "Or perhaps it is simply the way of humans, to face the sparks directly, to blow them away with nothing but air from their lungs." "They are very brave." Elena had to press her hand over her mouth to keep from laughing aloud. By week's end, the phenomenon had spread throughout the HFY contingent. Everywhere Elena looked, young engineers were finishing their repairs with solemn ceremonial blowing across circuit boards, data cores, and power relays. The elder HFY engineers watched with bewildered expressions but said nothing. After all, the cubs were learning, and who were they to question human methodology? Captain Shivara, a dignified HFY with silver-white fur and decades of command experience, eventually approached Elena in the mess hall. "Engineer Martinez," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "I understand you have been teaching our young ones," Elena grimaced. "Captain, I can explain." "No need." Shivara's whiskers twitched, and what Elena had learned was amusement. "We HFY have explored the galaxy for 10,000 years. We have built wonders that span solar systems. We have calculated trajectories that bend space-time itself." She paused, her amber eyes twinkling. "But we have never taught our children to blow on circuit boards." Elena felt her cheeks flush. "It's really not necessary for—" "Perhaps not," Shivara interrupted gently. "But for 3 months I have watched our cubs observe you with fear and fascination. You humans who take apart what we would never touch, who repair what we would replace, who blow on sparks instead of simply waiting for them to die." She placed a soft paw on Elena's shoulder. "You have taught them something more valuable than technique, Engineer Martinez. You have taught them that there is more than one way to solve a problem. That sometimes the bravest thing is not to build a perfect seal, but to open something up and trust yourself to fix it." That evening, Elena returned to her workstation to find a small gift waiting. A circuit board deliberately scorched, with a tiny compressed air canister and a note in careful standard script. "For practice, remember to blow." Or in the engineering cubs, Elena smiled, picked up the board, and got to work. And when the repair was finished and the sparks flew, she pursed her lips and blew them gently away. Behind her, she could hear the soft chittering of approval from a dozen young HFY engineers, all watching, all learning, all ready to face the sparks themselves. Humanity had brought many things to the galactic exchange: technology, art, cuisine, and culture. But perhaps their greatest gift was this: the courage to fix what was broken, and the willingness to teach others to do the same, even if it meant blowing on circuit boards that didn't really need blowing. After all, that was the human way.